Morning, girls. What are we all seeing? Hi. Good morning. Good morning. There you go, Edith, Hambo, Emily, Beryl. Come on, Jemima. You know you want to. Here we go. And the one person that is not going to come out of their own accord is a certain little lady who is broody again. So we'll have a look in the nest box. And here we find lovely little Matilda. We also have some feathers in there from a molt from someone. Right, here we go. The walk of shame. Come on, Jemima. Come on. Up you get. There you go. There you go, darling. So yes, we have a broody Matilda. She was broody earlier on in the year for about 6 weeks, and I thought we'd got away with not having any more broodiness, but she went broody a few days ago, and as a result she's a bit of a Mrs. Grumpy Knickers, with the hens lower in the pecking order than she is, and she has a little go at them every so often. Hormones. And we have Jemima there, who has, as I've said in previous videos, unfeasibly long feathers. She's maybe not the prettiest girl at the minute because her feathers are all a bit dishevelled, but she's going through a bit of a molt. I'm hoping that she has a big molt to get rid of all the old messy feathers so that we can have some nice, fresh, shiny feathers. But I don't know how much she'll actually lose this year, because chickens tend not to have a big molt until they're about 18 months old, and she's not even a year yet. She's maybe coming up to a year. But you might be able to tell there's a few little gaps and sort of burst cushion bits on her. But chickens have loads of feathers. I mean, you appreciate they've got quite a lot of feathers, but it's only when they start molting and you see the number of feathers that can come out of them that you appreciate the thousands of feathers they have of all different shapes and sizes. So yeah, Jemima's in a molt, Matilda's broody, and the others are just getting about their chickenly business, aren't you? Well, Jemima's still got a little bandage on. Her bumblefoot is just about gone. Just trying to get the last bit of the healing process happening, and then it won't be long before we can take the bandage off. Now the girls are enjoying this seed that I've put out for them, and probably with more gusto than they might normally, because actually they've been wormed for the past week. Chickens, like other creatures, can pick up worms, and chickens can pick up worms from wild bird droppings or... Oh, what's Jemima seen? Hang on, I'll come back to the worming conversation in a minute. Have you seen someone? Who have you seen? Is there a poory cat? It's all right, baby. Is there a pooty cat? Come on. Back up. No. Back up. Back up. No, not in there. Not in there. There you go. Oh. Okay. Right, where was I? Yeah, chickens can pick up worms from wild birds because, of course, they free range in the wild birds. There's a pigeon, just as case in point. The wild birds kick about the garden, as do the chickens, and they can pick worms up from them. They can also pick up worms from worms and slugs and snails, different types of worms. So usually what I've been doing, and what most, or certainly many chicken owners do, I'll just sit back down again, is that every 3 months we give them a worming treatment. And the worming treatment for chickens is a thing called Flubenvet, which is a sort of combination of layers pellets, their normal feed, that has worming stuff in, and that's they have that for a week. Oh, that's Quentin. They have that for a week, and that alleviates the worm burden. But I think more people are getting worried about, you know, resistances and creatures getting resistant to preventative measures, and worming sort of fits into that. So instead of just worming every 3 months without fail, and running the risk of worms gradually becoming resistant to the medicine that we give the chickens, I sent away a sample of their poo to a lab to get a worm burden exam done. Oh, I can't have a decent conversation here, girls. Who is clucking about this time? Matilda. Do we have a kitty cat in our midst? Is that what it is? It's hard to tell because this garden's a bit jungly at the minute. So there could be cats in the undergrowth. The cats tend, you know, they don't bother the chickens in that they won't harm the chickens, but the chickens kind of get a bit worried by them. Da, da, da. Any kitty cats? Any kitty cats? Can't see. Okay, so, yeah, so I thought what I would do is send away a sample of the chicken poo to see if they have any worms, to establish if they've had worms, so that I can worm them if that's the case, and I'm not worming them unnecessarily. So it's quite easy to do. You send away for... Oh, there's a cat. Colin, surely you've not been freaking them out. So yeah, you send away for a sampling kit. They send you a few little bits and pieces back in the mail. You collect poo from, you know, the variety of chickens that you have, and you mulch it all up in a poly bag, and then you put a little sample in a plastic tub, and you post that back to the lab. And then just a couple of... Pigeon! Shoo pigeon, get out of my veg. Out of my vegetation, thank you. Yeah, you send that back in a couple of days, you get the results. And my results came back that they had a very low worm burden, but they did have a small amount. There's different ranges, and usually the range that their poo fell into, you don't have to worm them, but because it was a particular type of worm, they suggested that I do worm them. So they have a very, very small instance of something called threadworm, and threadworm is tiny. I mean, as you imagine, it's just the sort of size of thread, so you wouldn't see it with the naked eye. They do, you know, and they basically, I think they use a centrifuge to separate eggs that might be found in the poo sample, and look under a microscope, and they can see the eggs and perhaps instances of the worms. So it's this threadworm. They can get it from, where'd you get it from? I think it's slugs and snails you get threadworm from. So they suggested that we worm them. So I did something a little bit different again. My girls don't get fed layers pellets. They get this mix called Alpha Garvo, which is it's like a mixture of grains. And I think, as well as little tiny layers pellets. And I think, well, they certainly enjoy it, and it just looks a bit more interesting than layers pellets. So taking that, and you can see some of it there, taking that good stuff away and then giving them plain old layers pellets would, they don't like it. They're like, oh my God, we don't really want to eat this. And you know, you take everything away, so that's the only food they have, but still, even though they're hungry, they only eat a minimum amount of the layers pellets. So you can buy the powder on its own. Let me just show you that. You can buy the powder on its own, and here we can see it here, this Flubenvet, and it's flubendazole is the active ingredient, and it's just in a little tub. If I pop that down, and you get this little measure, little tiny scoop, and you put a level scoop to 2 kilograms of feed, and you mix it through. So it's only a very small amount you need to put in, and you put the feed in their feeders, and that acts as a wormer. And the good thing about that powder is that if I want to give them something different, for example, if I wanted to give them scrambled egg as a little treat, or tuna as a little treat, I can still do that as long as I put the correct proportion of that wormer into it, because they're still getting the wormer at the required dose. And so that's what I've been doing. So that's been a week now. Has it been a week? Yes, it has been a week. So that I think today, after today, I won't need to put any more wormer in their feed, and that should be then wormed. The lab suggests that I send another sample in about 12 weeks time, and we'll check that again and see if there are any other worms, or if we've eradicated the worms, because it's an ongoing thing. You know, they'll pick up worms regularly, and you just have to regulate the worm burden that they have. I don't think they'll ever be completely worm free. I don't think that's possible, particularly with hens that are free ranging, but you just want to keep it in a manageable level. And it's the same as you do with your cats and your dogs or your horses or your pigs or your sheep or whatever. You know, you just keep the worm burden at a dosage that is okay for their health. So yeah, that's what we've been doing this week. We've been worming, and as I say, we have good old Matilda at the end there. Broody. She's actually not as verminantly broody as she was in the summer, but she does still need lifted out the nest box and allowed to have a wee leg stretch and eat and a drink and a poo. And she'll go back in of her own accord as soon as I let her back into the run. Hopefully it won't be a long lasting brood this time. And then we've got little Jemima there, who's hopefully going to get rid of those horrible feathers and grow in some lovely ones like her sister. Sorry Jemima, but you will be really much more pretty when you've got your new feathers in.